Great. Looks like most people here are currently using Sahi Pro. Okay, and most people have voted too. So let's actually jump into the webinar. Okay, so that was just to get a sense of what I should be talking about and what to emphasize on in the webinar. So I'm closing the poll now. Okay, here we go. So we have been super excited to actually release Sahi Pro 11. And the reason is that we had been working on this flowcharts concept for a long time, for almost 2.5 years now, almost like mid-COVID onwards. And we had been attempting something which we didn't know whether we would be able to pull off or not. Okay, and we when we were looking at Sahi Pro 10, we were doing test automation via a low code BDTA, and that's what we had been asking people to look at. Okay, and what we realized was there were a few things that we thought we could simplify and we could actually make it easier for people to actually start using. Okay, so this flowcharts is an um, attempt at that no code way of doing test automation. So what is Sahi Pro flowcharts, right? So is Sahi Pro 11 only Sahi Pro flowcharts? No, of course, like whatever has been there in Sahi Pro is all there, right? We did a bunch of enhancements also. For example, in most browsers have a fetch API now, for which like Sahi Pro did not wait before. We have added waits for that. We have fixed a bunch of other issues, and also like fine-tuned a bunch of things for the latest mobile versions, etc. Then we also improved our documentation quite a bit, especially because we were also throwing in the new Sahi Pro flowcharts thing. So we have made modifications to that, and overall we have tried to actually make the user interface more modern. So that had been one of our problems with Sahi Pro, in that the user interface used to look a little old. So that is, we have started fixing those things now. And I'm hoping that like you'll like the new user interface if you've not seen it. Okay, so over and above all that, we have the Sahi Pro flowcharts thing. The flowcharts is a no-code way of doing test automation. It's a visual way of representing and automating test flows. So what we had been seeing was Sahi Pro could actually make a lot of non-technical testers, non-programmer testers start doing automation. But then like when there were tricky areas in that, people did have to get into code a little bit. Okay. And we were seeing whether we can get rid of that and get people who are business testers, or like, the exploratory testers, the manual testers, etc., into the fold of automation. So Sahi Pro flowcharts is for anybody in a tester role. As it says, right, you could be a manual tester, an exploratory tester, an automation engineer, a business analyst, delivery manager, anybody who's playing a test automator role at this point, or a tester role at this point. So we want faster releases, or like bug-free releases. And in order to be able to do that, can everybody pitch in to do automation? That's the problem we had been trying to solve with this. Okay. So to see what flowcharts is trying to do, we needed to see why was scripting really needed. Scripting previously, okay, this is not just about Sahi Pro, like but also about other tools. Scripting was needed for complex UI element identification. Okay, sometimes you need to actually find a list of things, then find a particular one, etc. There needs Scripting was needed for repeatability. For example, if you were to do a registration process and you recorded it, or like just used hard-coded values, the next time you wouldn't be able to run that flow, because the the email address with which you signed up has already been used, so it can't be reused again. So for repeatability, there had to be a bunch of things that needed to be done. So for example, creating and passing unique values, etc. Then there were cases where you needed to data drive, and in order to data drive, you had to parameterize whatever was on the was being input into the system, and then pass the parameters from an external source, doing a loop, reading a file, and other things. Then there were conditional flows where it said like, if you saw this, or if this is what you need, like actually create something like this. So those were places where we needed code. Then of course, if you were writing code, you needed to be able to reuse code and also make it modular and be able to edit it in only one place, the dry principle, don't repeat yourself kind of principle. So you wanted to club them all together so that there is a logical unit and those could be reused wherever needed, and those were reusable function blocks. So to be able to do that, you need a programming language to actually build those, either as a method or a function or something. And then the other things apart from like the actual execution itself, right, there are other things that make the test automation useful. These are reporting, integrations with tools, etc. So those all needed scripting and coding. Okay, so what were the problems in the coded approach? So what is it that we wanted to actually alleviate? What was the problem that we wanted to make easier? So one of the primary things is it needs coding expertise, and we've seen that it is not easy to have to become a good programmer without years of practice, and to have some that expertise in a tester is difficult. It is difficult to find good business testers with good coding skills. So you either have this or that, and often teams were actually sacrificing good testers for good programmers, so which because of which testing suffered. Okay, we also noticed that a lot of tests, when you write these test cases, are copy paste of each other. For example, if you were to test out a shopping cart application and you wanted to check with a coupon which is enabled and a coupon which is disabled, and based on the coupon being enabled or disabled, you would either have the discount applied to the shopping cart or the discount not applied to the shopping cart. Now overall, this is just a copy paste, like they are just like copies of each other, except for that part which actually says is the coupon enabled in the setup process, and when you apply it in one of them, and then you verify that okay, the discount has been applied. So there are three places where changes go in, but they're all very small changes, and often it happens that these tests are just copy pastes of each other. Okay, so when that happens, you would see that like if there are 5-6 copies, it is difficult to figure out whether the intent that you wanted, or like let's say you have a test code base of tests, you want to think, hey, has this particular intention been handled, has this particular scenario been tested? If you ask that question, it is tough to actually figure it out without going through those different test cases or scenarios. So to find them, it takes time. Then the other problem is when a small part of the flow changes. These are all copy paste sections of code. So when a small part of the flow changes, it has to be updated in wherever it is affected, in all those places. So that's also like, even though you wrote those reusable function blocks, the calling of those function blocks is still copy pasted, because they do have changes, and like you do copy paste and like make changes there. So that's another problem. Now, the third thing is building a good framework. It is not easy, and it needs expert programmers. Such programmers are hard to retain, and like any replacement who comes in normally wants to write their own framework. So because that's 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 what they feel is their core thing. So as a business continuity thing, it can be a problem. So if your star programmer or your test automation engineer leaves, you're left with a test automation code which you may not be able to sustain afterwards. Okay, so to solve all these problems is why we actually started, we are introducing Sahi Pro Flowcharts in this. So it's a no-code test automation platform. Okay, so let's look at like what all this thing does. So these are the flowcharts features. This is not the, it's not everything, but like these are some things that we'll even touch upon in this particular webinar. So there are, so the first thing is of course representation, and like authoring of the test cases is visual. It's a flowchart like interface through which we do the test cases. Okay, it has no code implementation. It has of course the powerful recorder and objects by which Sahi Pro has always had. It has good object identification, same as what Sahi Pro has. It has automatic waits as before. There's a new thing called a step composer, which is instead of writing the code of set value, etc., or like, click and select option, etc., you can use a step composer to come up with the steps. Then we have automatic parameter passing. We have inbuilt data generators for the repeatability case. We have positive validations and negative validations inbuilt. So what this means is, often one of the commonest things that people do in test automation is, and where actually test automation can save you a lot of time, is doing positive and negative validations on various form fields. So this is actually a boring, mundane part of our overall testing, but it is something that needs to be done. So we have actually in flowcharts, we have tried to keep this, make this as simple as possible. Then the other regular things that we need in test automation, like explicit data looping, conditional flows, etc., are there. But there are also other specific things which you could only manage with code before, but you can actually do it with this interface, which I'll touch upon in the demo. Okay. Apart from that, we have suites, tags, and dependency, as Sahi Pro did. Okay, like instead of a DDCSV like data-driven suite, we have something equivalent where you can actually specify the suites, the tags, the dependencies, etc. Parallel distributed playback is as before. We have built-in reports, same. And then version control and collaboration. So this is a slightly different, there is a slight difference in this from the Sahi Pro 10. So we've started calling the Sahi Pro 10 BDTA, etc., as the Sahi Pro Classic. Because that was the coded way of doing it, and like going forward, we are calling it the Sahi Pro Flowcharts. So in Sahi Pro Classic, we had JavaScript files as .sh files, DDCSV files, etc., and .csv files, etc., scenario files. In Sahi Pro Flowcharts, we have a few JSON files which represent the user interface, okay, and they are version controllable too. Okay. However, you would modify most of it via the user interface only. So it's time for a demo. So what I'm going to do is, okay, so let me just minimize the, sorry. I minimize the presentation, and this is the flowcharts Sahi Pro dashboard. Okay, so when you double click on Sahi Pro, this is what you get now. The Sahi Pro dashboard is, previously we used to show all the browsers, and those are all here in the launcher section. So you can, if you're using the classic Sahi Pro, you can continue to do that by going to the launcher section. You'll find whatever was there before, except that the UI looks a little different now. Now, in this, like if you, so here basically the browsers, and then the scenario editor from here, the scripts folder is here, and any settings that you would want to talk, manipulate is from here. Okay, so if you want to actually go to the settings, you can go from here. So this is how this is the equivalent of the older classic Sahi Pro. Okay, now let's look at the flowchart section. We'll click on the flowcharts button here. Okay, and that brings up the new user interface. This is where we have all the projects. Okay, for this, let's create a new project. Okay, I'll call it just a webinar, and this takes me to the screen where it shows me all the flowcharts. So let me create a new flowchart, and this flowchart, we're going to, this is about user registration. Okay, so I'm giving it a name, and let's create our first test case. So I click on the start. Okay, this menu shows up, and then I say add node, label. I give it a name. This is just a label. I call it user registration. Add an action. Say go to registration page. Add another action saying enter, let's say, user details. So basically this is a registration page of the open cart shopping application. It could be any, actually most of these are common in any application. So you'd go to the registration page, enter the user details, then verify that the user is registered, and then log out, maybe if it is already logged in, right? So we would let's actually do that. So we create an outcome which says verify user details. user created, let's say, and then we give an action of logout. Okay, so let's say this, and to just show you what the application looks like, so I'm gonna like show you the application. I'm clicking on launch here, and it is launching this application through Sahi. Okay, this is the open cart application. Okay, and what we will do is like actually go to the register, put in values here, and then continue, and then go ahead. Okay, now how did this UI know to actually launch that browser? There are launcher settings here, so which tell you like which browser, which mode, which browser, and what the start URL is. Okay, now here is where you could change it to your application start URL. Okay, now let's do this. We're going to automate this. So right click on automate. When we click on automate, we see this dialog, which is the path dialog, and inside these we have keywords and other things. So you can see that like whatever we put in has come up here. Okay, these are the keywords from the system from this particular path. Now we go to registration page, and we're going to implement this. What does it really mean? How does it interact with the user interface is what we'll actually put into the implementation of this keyword. To do that, I'm going to click on start record. This again launches the browser. Okay, but now it's in the record mode, so it shows that it's start record, right? So now I click on this my account. Okay, and then click on register. You see that those two steps got recorded. Okay, now you will see that the action looks like English, but the element itself looks the same as Sahi Pro's accessor. Now we'll save this keyword and move to the next one, so which is enter user details. So let's enter user details here. I'll just like make this unique so that it doesn't fail. Okay, and so I interact with the system, and like whatever I'm interacting is getting recorded here. This is the same as a Sahi Pro recorder, except that in the Sahi Pro recorder, you got it as a raw script in JavaScript or Sahi script. In this, it goes in as steps in the system. Okay, so I save this and go to the next keyword, which is verify user created. So let's add a verification here. Similar to what we have in Sahi Pro, we launch the controller by alt double click. I'm alt double clicking here, okay, and control hover on the element. Now you could this controller can be in page, or you can pop it out, okay, and there are also controllers inside the you can find this object identifier inside the add step also. So there are multiple places from which you can access it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to your account has been created. Okay, choose the so the better identifier here, like we always do in Sahi, and then we say assert text equals. So let's run the step. It says that it's true. We'll add the step here. So it says assert equals of get text of this, and this is the value. Okay, so it adds a step there, and after doing that, we'll click on continue. Okay, so we did this. This is verify user created, and then we go to logout. Yeah. Right, so this is logout. So this was fairly similar to what we had in the BDTA. We would have actually written the steps in an Excel like user interface, and then we would have used run record to record each one of these, except that there you would see a bunch of code and like parameterization, etc. Here you don't see any of that. Okay, now it is evident that if you look at the enter user details thing, right, like it is all hard coded. Like for example, of interest to us is set value email and this particular email address. Now if you were to replay this script will fail because it is using the same email address to sign up again. Instead, what we'll do is we'll see how to parameterize it easily and also add a data generator to it such that it will create a unique value every time it executes. Okay, so let's do that. So in order to parameterize it, I'm going to click on the quick extract button here. Okay, so when I do that, it is extracting out all the UI elements and the data in this particular recording. So you see that the UI element says text box first name, the corresponding data, and last name data, etc. So let's extract it to the user.first name. The second one becomes last name, email, phone, password, and password again. Okay, because these are the same passwords. And I click on extract. Now you see that all these parameters, wherever like it was actually a raw UI identifier like checkbox or like this, instead of underscore text box, it has now become, it has a name and it has become a reference. Okay, so it is referencing the user's first name input, and for the value it is using the user.first name. Okay, so what is this user that we've talked about, right? So in flowcharts there is a concept of entities that interact with each other in the application. For example, in a shopping cart, there could be a user, there could be a card, there could be a product, category, coupon, etc. These are the objects that interact with each other. So these are called entities in the system, and each entity has its own different attributes. For example, like if I were to actually like look at the dollar user, so this user entity has these attributes now, which we just extracted. Okay, so these are all its attributes: first name, last name, email, phone, password, etc. We just extracted it from there. You could add more also from here. So in order to keep everything organized, we realize that the UI element identifiers, the data generators, data, etc., can be kept alongside with an entity and its attribute. Okay, so that's why like we have kept it like this. So in the user entity, we have first name, last name, email, etc. And we see that for the first name, this particular thing, the text box first name has come in as the UI element for it. For last name, it is in the underscore text box last name is associated with the last name, email is here, phone is here, etc. So you can keep all your UI identifiers alongside the object's attribute. So whatever UI element um, is used to represent the user's first name, you can club them all together. For example, if you look at the password field, there were two password fields that were there. One was the password and then the confirm password. You can keep both of them together with the password field. Okay, now let's go to the email attribute. Now what we wanted to do is we want to make the email become unique with each run, so that whenever it runs, the test passes. So let's go to the data generator tab. So you see that for each one of these attributes, we have 4 different tabs in this. So let's go to the email and get to the data generator. In the data generator, we see that it has automatically like parsed the particular data that we had put in, or the you know based on the data, it has figured out that it's an email, and this is the name of it, this is the domain of it, and it has some other attributes. So I'm gonna change this and say, so I'm giving it a name as this, and I'm going to say that add a timestamp to it. Okay, so you'll see at the bottom, so if it was false, you see that this is a sample that will get generated every time. In this, there is no randomness added. So in order to give it a uniqueness, we'll add a timestamp to it. So it becomes this plus a timestamp. Okay. So you see that whenever you refresh it, it gives you a new one. So this is the generated value of it. So we have attached a data generator which will give it a unique value every time, and we're going to save this entity. Okay. So now that we've done that, let's run this particular script. So we can click on the run button here, and it will ask you what to execute it on. So let's keep it as to where it is, and we'll run this. right? Things passed, and of course the reports are here. So you click on the reports. This is similar to what we have in Sahi Pro, okay? And this is what just now ran. And here you'll see these are the different steps. You can look at enter user details. It shows you that set value of first name, last name, email input, etc. You can open it to see the script. So you can see that set value email, and then this particular thing was put in there. Okay. So you see, you get the full details of like whatever is executing and how it is actually implemented, etc. in the reports. Now let's go back to this. So let us see, apart from just this much, right, in a form, what else can we do without writing much code? So one of the things that we have added is the ability to add validations to any of these paths by just specifying the values that need to be tested. Okay, so now let's look at a negative validation. So first, let's actually go to the application. So now if we go to the register page and just click on continue, okay, we see that there are a bunch of error messages that are visible here. Okay, now if we were to look at the last name, so let's pay attention to the last name. So it says last name must be between 1 and 32 characters. Okay, so ideally we shouldn't be guessing it from just the error message. It should come from like what your business requirement has been. But like for now, like we'll just say, okay, this is the error message I see. Okay, now what is the input value that will give me this? So based on this, it says 1 to 32 characters. So I should not be putting a 0 character string, and I shouldn't be putting a greater than 32 character string. Both of them should be rejected by the system. So you can look at this and say, okay, you can click on the suggest. If there is anything that it can suggest, it will suggest. Sorry, I'm in the email field. I'll go to the last name field. Okay, and then click on suggest. So it says that, okay, it doesn't understand much. So it says input value should not be blank for the blank value. So I'll just add that. Okay, now there was one more thing. So where like we needed 30. So what was the error message here? So I just copied it from there. So I had copied it from here. So I put this error message here. And for greater than 32 characters, also like we need to, this was the same error message. And like let's put a value for that. So this is a greater than 32 characters string. So I've already prepared it. So I'll just put that there. Okay. So we know that for this kind of a negative value, these are the error messages that should appear. Okay. And apart from this, we also need to tell the system, okay, for the text box last name, which is, sorry, for the text box last name, where is the error message going to appear? So we will just like say that, okay, this error message is going to appear in the UI element of this particular thing. So let's identify it. So you can see that, like if I actually just hover on this, it shows up here also at the bottom. Okay, so in this UI element tab itself, it's visible. So I can choose text danger 1, or rather I will use a relational API. For that, I'll do last name and then anchor and hover on this element and choose a better UI element, right? Now this is the element that we want. I can highlight it and see if I want, right? So I can do that. So it'll show you, it'll highlight and show you. And once I know that, I can just drag it here, right? So a lot of these things are like the user interface is fairly easy to use. So you put that in there. Okay, so now we have only specified what the error values are, what the error messages are, and where it should show up. So if we were to run this, right? So let's actually run this. So when I click on run, you see that the positive and negative validations are disabled. So what we'll do is we'll go to the path and then say enable validations for this path. Okay. And then we'll go to run. So these two things appear. We'll just like check the run negative validations and run this. So when we do that, sorry, and this browser opens up, So the last name is empty for the first time, okay? And then it put a long one, and then again it like verified. Now it is using a normal one just to make sure that like, even after validations, a thing is passing, and then it goes on to finish the flow, okay? So this is the older browser, don't worry about this. So let's look at the reports. You will see the same thing. So here it says validation for last name with blank and with long characters, and you'll see that that particular thing has been put in, right? So that takes care of your negative validation. So you can just like say, okay, for this element, these are all the different possible problematic values. So, and where there are like some specific formats in which a particular thing should be. For example, an email, there is a RFC format on what it should look like. So in such cases, right, you can actually use the suggest button here. So it will tell you like, okay, what are all the negative values that you should be maybe checking on. Okay, so it gives you a bunch of them. You can either, it could like just choose whichever you want and then add them, and it'll like show up here. Okay, um, so that is also helpful in figuring out like what to actually like add to the negative validations. And positive validations actually mean that, okay, instead of so this says like the value has to be between like 1 and 32 characters. So as a boundary value check for 1 and 32 characters, you could actually say, okay, I want an input value of 1 where like the comment is that like 1 character, and this is 32 characters, and I could put in this thing. Okay, and sorry, this I have actually put it in the email, right? And save this and run. So if I run this again, like, I can actually choose to run positive validations, in which case it will run for these positive values also. So you can choose to run any of these. Okay, I'm just not running this right now. Okay, so now what else does this can the system do? So as a simple path, you can also say, okay, I want to actually attach a data source, and say, okay, this is a users CSV file, okay, and I'll give it some data. Now what data can you actually provide here? I can actually add columns from here. So these are all the like users first name, user last name, etc., that you can add. So you can give it an A, B, B, etc., right? And you could just run, you can give your own data set and then run that. Okay, so that is also something that you can provide. And the data sets can be provided either at the path level or also at a node level. So if you wanted to just loop over a node, you can actually say data loop, and then like you use the same whatever we created there, or like you can create a new one here. Okay, so you can loop over this place also. Now the next question is, why do we call it a flowchart? This essentially looks the same as our regular Excel like user interface, the BDTA interface. The only thing that has changed is the recorded, like the steps are no code now. Okay, but is there more to this, right? So actually there is. So let's actually look at this example where we are seeing that the user registration has happened, but now we want to ask a question: what if the user is already registered? Okay, so now we can do this at the point where it says enter user details. We could actually add a node, and here we'll actually say a condition, and we'll say the condition is $user dot exists. Okay, now, well, if the user does not exist, so I'll just flip the condition. Okay, so it says if the user does not exist, verify that the user is created and log out. Okay, and what happens if it does exist? Okay, we'll say we'll add an outcome saying, sorry, verify dollar user cannot re-register. Okay, now we're saying enter the user details. Okay, and if the user already exists, like verify that the user cannot re-register. Okay, now we need to add one more thing, which is to say we'll add a node of an outcome to say so when the flow goes through this path, it will at the end of it say that the user exists equal to true. Okay, and when it goes through this path, it needs a user.exists equal to true. So it says, okay, this is a precondition for me. So I'll go ahead and go through the other path which actually sets it and then come here. So let me actually show you this. So I do automate here. It just goes through this path. Okay, and I automate this here. It actually like does two things. First, it goes through here and then comes through here. Okay, so basically it realized that, okay, for this path to be exercised, I need that the user.exists is true. And which other path gives me a user.exists equal to true? This path gives me. So I'll actually execute that first. Okay, so this takes care of your data setup. Okay, so it first goes and does a user registration and then does a user registration where it puts in the same details and then says, okay, verify user cannot re-register. So let's actually implement this. To implement this, right, you could actually do something like this. You say run till here. So we keep it here, okay, to in verify user cannot, and then say run till here. Okay, and we'll run it on the same thing. Enters values. Now again, it's putting in the same values. Okay, and we have reached up to the point where this error message is being seen. Okay, now let's add the assertions for this. So I'm going to say start record. Okay, and control hover on this. Let me bring up the okay, I can either add the assertion from here, or I can do an add step. I can move to this and go to inspect element, control hover on this. Okay, I can choose this one and say add assert text equals. Okay, so it will create this. So this step actually says this is the action, these are the parameters, and with the return value assert that it equals whatever the error messages. So if you don't want to build this up yourself, you can of course go in and edit it like whenever you want, but if you don't want to build this, you can use these simple things to do this. Okay, so I update. It is much easier to actually perform this from this browser window itself, because it doesn't, you don't have to change focus and browser context, etc. And if especially if you're on a Mac machine, that becomes a little tedious if you have to go between these two windows. So it's better to actually open up this controller and then work on this. Now apart from that, I also want to see that, okay, the first name field is still open, so that it kind of I'll check for the first name still being still existing and then add that, so that I know that you're still on that form. Okay, and this is the test. So now if you run this again, right, it will just execute the first path, then like re-register with the second one, and then verify that the user cannot re-register. Okay, so two things happened here. One was it figured out what the precondition was and then satisfied it by itself. And the second one was it remembered the values it had used the first time and reused it the second time. Okay. Yeah, and that's it. Okay. Now, how much more complicated can these um, paths, these conditions be? In this case, we have just used it in a single path itself. Okay, some other things, right? You can actually like, if you messed it up or did something like this and all, right? You can always undo these things. You can select and then like align it and do these things also. Okay, and whatever is here in this particular as flowcharts, if you wanted to see, okay, what are the different paths it takes, you'll see a truth table view of it which says, okay, these are two paths. You can rename this. Both of them are just picking the label name. You can rename this from here. Like let's say you want to say user registration cannot user re-registration, let's say. Okay, so you can name it like this. Okay, and here there are this truth table which actually tells you what it is, etc. Okay, and this can also be executed in different orders. If you want to change the order of execution, you can move this up or down. You can also add any path tags, any depends, etc. here, so that you can depend on each other like you do in a DDCSV file. Okay. Now, but this is just like two paths here. So what more complicated thing can happen here? So let's look at a pre-built project. So when you actually install Sahi Pro, like there are these three projects that come with it. This is a very simple basic one, which is similar to what we show in the example. Now, let's look at this one. This is the right way of implementing it. Okay. So let's go here and look at the checkout path. Now, this is this crux of it. Okay. So we are saying that this is the checkout label. This says that, okay, ensure that nobody is logged in at this time. Navigate to the shopping cart. You could have written it as navigate to shopping cart also. This is just a shorthand way of saying navigate to shopping cart. And then it says a product should exist at this point. Okay, so it ensures that a product exists, and then go say search for a product, add the product to the cart, view the cart. For this path, do you want to apply the coupon? If no, just verify the cart total. We are doing nothing else, but just like, we added that item and then we are verifying the total. Now apply the coupon. If at all you want to go down the path of apply coupon, what happens after you apply the coupon? Does the coupon exist, or is it a bluff coupon? Are you just saying ABCD instead of like having a real coupon? If it doesn't exist, verify that the coupon discount does not apply. Now let's say we want to test for a real coupon. So we say, okay, a coupon exists, and then you say now the case is the coupon enabled or disabled? So you could set up a coupon and you could keep it disabled. For example, if it's a Christmas coupon and you don't want to actually enable it right now, you could say it's disabled right now. So if it is disabled, again, the discount should not be applied. Let's say that it is enabled. Now, is this coupon for this product? So like if you bought a shoe, is this coupon for a shoe or is it for a shirt? Now, if this is for the same product, okay, so okay, before that, right, this actually says, is it for a product? Is it specific to a product? There could be generic coupons like the Christmas coupon. But if it is a specific coupon for a product, then you check whether that coupon is for that product, which is is the shoe coupon there. If it is not, then discount is not applied. If it is, then the discount is applied. So basically, we are expressing how our system should behave based on what the state of how the application what the state of the application is at any point of time. So what happens when a coupon is there, when it is enabled, it is disabled, etc. Now the good part about this is when you choose a particular path, let's say I choose this path, I want to actually take coupon dot is enabled, and I'll take this and then say automate. I can click on multiple path nodes and say automate. Okay, and it will tell me, okay, this is the path I want to take, but for this, so for this path I need some conditions, which is like the path exists is false, apply coupon is true. Okay, so apply coupon is true. So it says, okay, for that I need to create a coupon, because in this path it says apply coupon is true and it says product.exist equal to true. Okay, now if product.exist equal to true and coupon.exist equal to true is here, for to satisfy these two conditions, it will go and look for paths which do a create coupon and a create product. Okay, so let's look at where these come from. So this path sees product.exist should be true. So it goes and looks in the create in other flowcharts. There is a create product here which says fill the product details, and at the end it says product.exist equal to true. So to satisfy this, it'll first go there, and then it also sees a coupon.exist is true. Okay, and for coupon.exist also it will see if there is any other path, and these are paths here. And so here also in the coupon creation process, we are saying, okay, if it is for a product, then ensure that the product exists, and then set the product for the coupon, etc. And otherwise go through the other paths. So based on these paths, right, you can actually, the flowchart will automatically figure out what pre-paths to take, and it will take it correctly. So for example, if we were to take this and then say automate, it first creates a product, the shoe product, let's say. It creates a coupon. Okay, so if I click here, it shows me some details. Normally, like you can see that this is what will happen. So first a create product will happen, and then a create coupon for that product will happen, and then another create product is created for a which doesn't have a coupon, and then during checkout this shoe coupon will be applied on a shirt product. So it automatically does that based on the conditions that we have specified here. Okay. Now, of course, this is a slightly advanced feature, but I wanted to show it to you because you can then know like what all is possible. When people start out, they don't necessarily use all these conditions. They could just use simple branching. Okay, and in the branching could just do something like this. So you say checkout, and like this is the main label. Say login as admin and then create product. This is a sub label. You can create a sub label. Here it is, add node, sub label. This is a sub label, and then you say okay, do all the product related stuff. Okay, fill the product details, save the product, verify the product details. And there are some conditions here which are not like they just specify whether what is the state of the particular coupon. So is it like, do you want the path to create a coupon, not create a coupon, etc. There are some conditions that you specify. Based on that, you can choose other paths. So you can just handle it with like simple conditions without dot exists, and with sub labels you can go on and create more. Okay, so this is what it will look like if you didn't want to use too many conditions. But like if you are okay to actually use preconditions, then this is the right way to do it. So you can actually see it's much more expressive once you understand it. Okay, and you can see that in the table view, this is the truth table of what happens when a coupon exists, when the coupon is enabled, disabled, is for product, etc. You can see the full thing here, truth table here, and you can look at it here to see whether which path it is. Now if you were to say, hey, you know what, like have I actually addressed that particular condition, have we tested that, it is easy to check through this flowchart that whether you have addressed that particular condition that you want to test or not, address that particular intention or the test case that you want. Okay, so that's primarily what the flowcharts product does. Okay, we do almost everything that the scenario files or the BDTA framework does. Over and above that, we also do automatic setup of data. We also allow some other things like data generators and positive validations and negative validations. There are more features also wherein you can say, hey, okay, if I'm creating a user and if the user is supposed to be an adult, now you can set a data generator to give an age of above 18 if it is an adult, and below 18 if it is not an adult. Those things are also possible in this. Okay, it is also possible to say, hey, for I'm moving from an older user interface to a newer user interface, and I want to keep the automation for both of them, and be able to say, okay, when I pass in a flag of old UI, then it will pick specific object identifiers, and when I pass in new UI, it will pick different object identifiers. Those are also possible in this, and these are things where you normally use programming to actually say, if this is this, use this identifier, that is the user identifier. Those things are also possible in this. If you're if you're exploring those features, like reach out to us, we'll do a separate demo on that. Okay, okay, now I'm just going to briefly refer to the various other features. So okay, okay, so one other thing that like which we need to know is version control and collaboration. Now these are all visual things, right? So how do you actually do version controlling of this? So for that, if you go to the projects page, you can click on this. Okay, so this is, if you click this, this is where the all the scripts are stored. So I'll click on this link, this icon. It'll open up the place where all my projects reside. Okay, so this is the webinar project that I just did, and inside that I have the flowcharts. This is the flowchart that we created. Okay, it's a JSON file, and we have tried to keep it one thing at a time kind of thing. So only one token in on a line, so that you don't get any merge conflicts or anything in this. As minimally as possible you get. Okay, So similarly, we have the keywords are here, the screens, and like various different entities like with their attributes, etc. are here. Okay, so you can, all of these are JSON files. We will we don't try to edit them directly. Use the UI to actually edit it. Okay, but you can check in all these files into the system. Okay, currently we have checked that there are like merge requests don't come too much when you actually use Git, but we are also working on a user interface to be able to show the problems if anything appears in the Git versioning control. Okay, during merges, etc. Okay, so I'm concluding this demo now. Let me go back to the presentation. Okay, so the other things that okay, so this is something that we need to know. If it is all via the user interface, okay, now do I lose control over my scripting fully? You don't. If you want to actually so let's actually look at the implementation of this. Now if you wanted to add a step, so this is the way you can build it via the user interface. I'll just make this a little longer so that it's easier. Okay, now we can also pass the raw script, so you can just say underscore set value if you wanted here. Okay, you could do that also. So you have the ability to edit things at the raw step level, at the step level. The user identifiers, we anyway keep it raw only. So these are like object identifiers like they appear in the Sahi Pro. So there is no change in that, and you can override it at the step. You can also use functions that are already there in the system. So for example, if I do an add step, so if you already have a project, you could actually say, okay, I go here and then click on custom functions, and any custom functions that are there, like login and other things, whatever is there, will all appear here. Okay, and you can call those custom functions. So if you already have a library of functions in Sahi, you can call them also from here. You can also do at the, if you were to like go to a project and say I want to run this here, I'm sorry, in the, you can go to execution order, and you can also call a suite file from here, add dd.csv and call a suite file from here. Okay, so you can specify the suite file, and in that dd.csv file you can actually add whatever scripts you want to call directly. Okay, and then like that will execute along with this. So you have the ability to call a suite, a script by putting it into the suite, a particular function by actually using custom functions, and at a particular step you can override the actual step itself using set value or whatever, like as a raw step. And the UI element identifiers are anyway code, so you can override at every level, but it gives you an easier way to do all these things. Okay. Yeah, so in the roadmap, right, we have like the reporting right now is what how it is seen in Sahi Pro. So we will be like tuning it for specifically for flowcharts. Okay, there are like some run options, etc., that need more fine-grained control. We want to do another overriding at the step level. That's something like specific. So these are some of the things that we are working on. Okay, so and we plan to release fairly quickly. So our internal releases happen like within 15 days, every 15 days, but we intend to do public releases every month, so that if you want to consume it, or if there are any bugs or anything, you can just use the update feature to update the product. Or if you don't want to consume it, that's also fine, but like we will be releasing at a much faster rate now. Okay, and that's about it that we wanted to actually tell you about Sahi Pro Flowcharts. Okay, thank you very much. And if you have any, one minute, sorry, I'll just put this up, the details. So you can go, we would like it if you can go and like join the Sahi Pro page. Okay, because we post all our updates there. If you have any POCs or queries, please like email us at support@sahipro.com, and of course like you can connect with me on LinkedIn also. Now there is a little, maybe a minute of time, or like if you want to like stay around, please stay around and ask any questions you have. Okay, we can see if we can answer them now. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can please post it on the chat. So just general question, like if you guys could just respond to it. Do you like the new user interface? Like just like no, if you think the user interface looks nice, like just like let us know in the chat by saying yes, it is good or whatever. Okay, so there's a question. Will there be an academy course available for flowcharts? Yes, we will be getting that out soon. Could we edit any results script if we wanted? The as I mentioned, you can actually override it wherever you can. I can see it, what actually happened. Change the flowchart when a new commit is done without opening the in the flowchart UI to take a look. Yes, that is correct. Okay, it can be hard. So we are working on a user interface where you will be able to see, like you'll be able to see the history and then do a diff of it, or like view it via the user interface. This is something we are adding. How can we manage a large number of test cases through flowcharts? So actually, like the expression of the flowcharts, you can have like as many flowcharts as you want, and the flowcharts themselves are fairly compact. So in given a flow, if you had one is like we are taking care of the validations, etc. We have moved that out separately, so it doesn't take any effort in that. Um, or like it doesn't take up space as test cases. Now, apart from that, the flows themselves, right? You will realize that even a complicated, you know, thing like a checkout, right? It can have like 50, 60 test cases easily coming out of it, but the flowchart wouldn't look too big. Okay, and out of that flowchart, based on the conditions, you may easily come up with like 50, 60 test cases. And because of how the flowchart itself is, because it is expressive and can actually accommodate multiple test cases in a single flowchart, you wouldn't have too many flowcharts. You will have like many, but like it won't be too big. Okay, and we have worked on projects where like there are like overall 2,500 scripts getting generated and all that. So like it can handle all that, but you will realize that you don't add so many test cases. You wouldn't have a proliferation of like just copy paste code in that, right? Okay, so is it possible to work with Java or just JavaScript? So if you want to continue to use that part, like you can still use the BDTA part or write raw scripts. So you in this user interface, in the raw script part, you can use the Sahi script or the JavaScript part. But if you want the full thing to be done by yourself via Java or JavaScript, you can use a normal script. Okay. Yeah, the recorded session we will share. Thank you, Jogi. You say it's very intuitive. Thank you very much. Okay, so does old version of Sahi 9 script will also work on the new? Yeah, anything that you have created so far, like from any version of Sahi, whatever has been like whatever was working with Sahi Pro 10 will continue to work with Sahi Pro 11. So no problem with that. Okay. So from 9 to 10, if there have been any changes, like we will actually help you out with that. But any old Sahi script should work with the new Sahi 11 also. Okay. So as far as if you're using it, you are using Sahi Pro Classic, almost nothing changes for you. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, folks. Thank you very much for joining in and like being a part of this. If you have any, we would really appreciate if you can post uh, about Sahi Pro on LinkedIn or other social media. We really appreciate any kind of marketing that you can help us with, because we are not that great at it. So if you can actually help us with like spreading the word, or like talking about it, or like even spurring some conversations around it, we'll be really grateful. Okay, so thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Actually, Jogi mentions that like my compatibility tests nearly done and are very stable for the older to the newer version. So yeah, that's there for you. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. Yeah, bye bye.